Recording in progress.
Good evening. Calling the regular Town Council Committee of the Whole order for July 23rd, 2024 to order. It is 6:31 p.m. and all are present, and we have Councilor Jones by Zoom this evening. So first, we have calendar and communications. Councilor Merritt, do you have anything you would like to communicate?
I just went to the Public Safety Committee meeting, and I'll leave that up to the chair.
Thank you. Councilor Borderline.
Thank you. First, I just want to say I attended the Board of Education meeting yesterday, asked a little question about the audit stuff that were presented, one being the vendor items that were on the previous year. Also spoke about, as many of you know, we have a junior ROTC program at Fitch High School, something that I was extremely passionate about 6 or 7 years ago, being a Navy community and New London High School having a program, and with the help of former Board of Ed members and other parents kind of getting together and writing and saying, hey, this is how it would benefit. It finally came to fruition and had its first year of completion this year. And, you know, it has benefited many students and will continue throughout the years. My youngest son graduating from Fitch did just recently go through that program at Fitch High School, and it offered him a full ride to college, being a product of a ROTC program prior, allowed him to be able to apply. So I just want to put it out there, if any parents out there in the future are looking at this program and have any questions, I'm definitely willing to help navigate, because it's extremely hard to find the paperwork. And I just want to give a shout out to Mr. Hinkle, the ROTC teacher at Fitch, who works with my son. And I happened to witness my son graduating as a midshipman fourth class this past couple weeks over in Great Lakes, where he graduated, and he's moving on to pursuing his degree in engineering, and then will commission as an officer in the Navy. So it was 656 men and women that graduated at that ceremony. So it's definitely an asset to the town of Groton, and I'm so thankful for the parents and myself for speaking up and bringing this to fruition in Groton. So just kind of good to have that. What else do I have? I think that is it. There was one other thing, but I can't think of it now, so I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Pacino.
I, too, attended the Safety Council meeting, and I will still leave everything up to the chair.
Thank you. Councilor Rusk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last Tuesday, we had a public safety team committee meeting with Councilor Merritt and Councilor Pacino. We discussed climate change emergency signage, all-terrain vehicle confiscation ordinance, and road signage visibility. Those will all be coming before the council or the committee of the whole at an upcoming date. So I will leave it to that. I also wanted to say thank you to the Ivoryton Playhouse for the invitation that we all received to see Mystic Pizza the musical. It was a wonderful performance. It was great to highlight the area, and I highly recommend seeing it before it closes on July 28th if you're available. I received all the emails that everyone else received regarding SB Butler, Board of Ed budget, and some other items. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Jones.
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McBride.
Thank you. Similar to the other councilors, received emails regarding SB Butler, the Board of Ed financials, the budget, and some questions on healthcare. I just want to let everyone know we are having harassment training next week, July 30th, for the council. I believe everyone's attending. I'm not sure, though, but I'll be there. Looking forward to, I also heard this past week that we'll be hearing soon over the next month or so that the Athletic Field Task Force will be providing some information to the council regarding next steps with Claude Chester, so that will be good to answer some residents' questions. I did have some questions on update on Groton Housing Authority plans from some emails we received regarding bonding and finance, but I believe Rob Frink's going to be speaking tonight, so I'll ask him those questions at that time. We also have a Rules Committee meeting coming up, I believe Monday. I'm not sure the date, but that must be
The 29th.
the 29th, so I'll be attending that. And Tuesday, 31st, I have a meeting with Stacy Leach to review some of the SCAR items that have been coming up. She's the Groton representative, so I'll have more to report after that meeting. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Counselor Gajewski? Oh, wait a minute. Before we start, I would like to thank you for taking on this new challenge of our timing.
This one is so much better.
So-
This is like a dream.
So we have a new timing system. As you can see, it's a different device. And we have little, I don't know what they're called, little boxes in front of us that have green, yellow, and red lights, and it shows the time, and it changes the color. And I would like to thank you for being the keeper of the time and taking care of the system.
Thank you. Thank you.
With Sean Greeley, who put it in. Thank you.
Yeah, Sean Greeley put it in, and it will turn yellow when you have 1 minute remaining.
Okay, and I hear that it does make a buzz.
It makes a buzz over there.
Okay, when there's like 30 seconds left.
Just the end.
Oh,
Just
at the final.
Just like the old one.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
It should vibrate your chair.
So, Groton City Day, we don't have a meeting before the next, so Groton City Day will be on, from 5 to 8 p.m. on Saturday, August 3rd, and then National Night Out is Tuesday, August 6th from 5 to 8 p.m. as well coming up. So great community events, so mark the calendars for those. I attended, as the council representative, the Children First Groton monthly meeting today. Chelsea Rodriguez, their new chair, is doing an excellent job. She's running the pop-up story times. They had one yesterday that they had 40 children at Pequannock Plains Park show up. It was partnered with the Denison Pequot Nature Center, who brought owls. They had the Pequannock Bridge Fire Chief as their story reader, and it ranged from ages 0 to 12. They're doing 2 more for the general public on Monday, July 29th at 62 Begin Point in Navy Housing, and then that theme is going to be turtles with the Denison Pequot Navy Center, and their guest reader is going to be somebody from the Navy. And then they're also going to go back to Pequannock Plains Park on August 5th. And then they also got Prescription to Read. Books were delivered on July 16th with a partnership with the Mystic and No Ink Library. And they will also, Children First Groton will be at City Day and National Night Out. And Children First Groton also has some pamphlets, tips for reading for your toddler. And I will give this to Councilor Russ, as she is probably the closest one to having a toddler in the family soon. So I will pass this
Not
down
me.
to you. So, and one last thing, former RTM member Nancy Driscoll passed away. Yeah, I know many of us knew her. She was a very active community member. She was 55 years old, was a member of the RTM, and was a nurse at Bacchus Hospital in Norwich. So I'll use the remainder of my time as a moment of silence for Nancy Driscoll.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Parker?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Can you pull your microphone down? Thank you.
No, it's not like that. Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I attended the Chase Bank grand opening. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce. I saw Mr. Bronk, Mr. Boris, Mr. Mathenall. It was a great turnout. Our state senator was there, and our state rep, Senator Summers, and Representative Baumgartner. They presented a citation. Want to say welcome to the community and glad you're here. Received communications regarding all the ones that everyone mentioned, and also I believe the other one that everybody's forgetting was about the climate resilience plan. Resilience, I think that was the one from this morning. We didn't have a meeting tonight for TVCCA because it'll be next Tuesday instead. So I want to give everyone that heads up, and that's all I have to report.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I was on vacation for, I don't know, approximately 10 days, and kept up with my emails and some texts. But while on vacation, I did visit numerous towns throughout Western New York, so I have some great ideas that I think that might work here. So I'll work on some of those. I would like to respond and say that typically, when you have, I know you're new as the chair on that committee, but typically when a committee has their recommendation all set, it usually comes back to the town council, and that's where we have the discussion there. And then also, I spoke with a reporter regarding the Board of Ed budget issues. She had questions regarding funding and nurses and items of such. So that's all I really had to report because I was on vacation. Tornado warnings and all. So we'll move on to approval of minutes. Counselor Parker, would you like to take that?
I make a motion to approve the Committee of the Whole special meeting minutes of July 2nd, 2024, and the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of July 9th, 2024. I so move.
Second.
Moved by Parker, seconded by Gajewski. Does anybody have any changes or updates they'd like to see in here? All right, so I had noticed something. I am on page 6. I'd like to note that in section 4A, I think it's the 7th section, I would like it to add that was called out of order 3 times. I'd like to have that specified in there. As well as on page 8. On the 8th section, coming down from the top, it says they were called out of order. They were actually called out of order. And then after the vote, I'd also like to say that Mayor Franco had called Mr. Thomas out of order 3 times. I would like it to state how many times it was. Then at the bottom, 3rd section from the bottom, it says Mayor Franco read, and I'd like it to say 3 emails from the Board of Education Chair Whiteloff, with the last one received at 3:46 that day, because it was actually 3 different emails that I had read. And those are the changes that I would like to see. Can I get a second on that?
Second.
Second.
Okay, I don't see any other hands. We'll take a vote on the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions?
McBride abstains.
All right, that passes 8 to 1 to 0.
Nope, 8 to 7 to 1. 7 to 1 to 1.
7 to 1.
Oh, 7 to 1 to 1, you abstained. I apologize. Thank you. Did you have your hand up for something?
I just have a question, comment. It's hard for me to recollect what happened in prior meetings. Is it at all possible if we as a council if we have comments on the minutes, because they're such detailed, can we send them to John Burt prior to the meeting, and that way we can review the comments to see if the comments should be incorporated? I don't know if that's making sense or not, but to hear your comments, and maybe, I just don't remember, but if we were able to send them to John Burt before the meeting, and then he could distribute it to the whole council, we could then review the changes, maybe even while watching the video, and then we'd be more prepared to approve the comments. There's just a suggestion, I don't know if that's allowed or not. But it's hard for me to-
I'm not sure if that's doing sort of the town's business,
Okay, just
by
either
email.
way, it's just difficult to remember, 3 weeks ago, in 2 minutes, so. Anyway,
Okay.
that's all, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to new business.
Madam Mayor,
I'm sorry.
you got to approve the changes and
Oh,
then
my
approve
gosh,
the
that's
whole-
right. We'll put on the approved
days is too
changes. I know. I was quite on vacation, you are correct. I think I only took one call while I was on vacation. So, approving the minutes as amended. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions?
McBride?
All right, that passes 7 to 1 to 1. On to new business. Number 2024-679, Groton Housing Authority American Rescue Plan Act request. There is a motion on this. Counselor Gajewski, would you like to read it?
Motion to item Groton Housing Authority American Rescue Plan Act request. Motion to recommend a resolution to award $375,864 in American Rescue Plan Act funds for the Groton Housing Authority for sewer work at Pequannock Village. So moved.
Second, Bordelon?
Moved by Gajewski, seconded by Bordelon. We have are we having people come to the table this evening, or are you giving a synopsis?
Just for a quick overview, we do have Robert Capoletti, the Executive Director of Groton Housing Authority, as well as Bob Freak, the Chairman. They're here to answer any questions. Just as a little lead-in, back February 7th, 23, the Town Council set aside, didn't formally approve, but set aside $795,000 in American Rescue Plan Act ARPA funds for sewer and broadband work at Grasso Gardens in case needed. And there's a mistake in this next line here. So the Mr. Capoletti called last week, reduced the request to $375,864 for work only at Pequot Village, not doing Grasso Gardens. As part of that, you'll see there's a estimate for the work there. So the request would be for $375,864 in ARPA funds for sewer work at Pequot Village. As a reminder, this would still have to go to the RTM for approval for anything you do. So, and they're here for any questions.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Counselor McBride?
Not necessarily a question with this, just a question with, so we will have an additional $425,000 of ARPA now available for other things?
Yeah, right now it's set aside and it will be not allocated to anything in particular.
Okay, good. Okay, no, that was one of the questions. Thank you.
All right, I have a question. Would you mind coming up to the table, please, Mr. Capoletti? So I'm not sure exactly like how far you are in the work of this, but because it's ARPA money, there's a stringent timeline associated with this, and I wanted to make sure that you could complete the work in the timeline that has been laid out in front of you.
Yes, so we've already contracted with the contractor, and they said it's about a 2-week total job when they start to finish. It won't disrupt the residents that are living there at the time, and it's generally a rebuilding of the sewer line from each building to the center of the street where they connect. Also, that the council may like to know that it will save about 30% of infiltration, water that's being infiltrated into the pipes from runoff rainwater that's going into the town sewer system. So it's going to be a big savings for the town and the housing authority. I appreciate your support and thank you for that.
Thank you. And when do you think you may have this completed?
It'll probably be done by the end of August.
Of this year?
Yes. He's been waiting for us.
Okay, those are my questions. I just want to make sure we can fit the timeline.
Absolutely.
Okay. I don't see any more any more hands for questions, so we will take a vote on Groton Housing Authority.
I got my hand up.
I looked over here 3 times,
And
until I called the vote, you didn't put your hand
That's
up.
fine, you can move on if you want to.
2024-679 Groton Housing Authority American Rescue Plan Act request. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, that passes 9-0. Thank you so much, and good luck. Up next, 2024-332-3, Blight Ordinance Revisions, set a public hearing. Hello.
Good evening, everyone. John Reiner, Director of Planning and Development Services.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Do you want us to read the motion before he speaks?
We have alternatives, so I don't know if we want to read a motion. If we wanted, we could do it. If you want to read the motion, There is a motion, but there are alternatives, so go right ahead. Counselor McBride, would you like to take that one? It's on page 13.
Certainly. The item 2024-332, blight ordinance revisions, set public hearing. To make a motion to recommend a resolution to schedule a public hearing on September 3rd, 2024, for revisions to the blight ordinance.
Second, Pacino.
Moved by McBride, seconded by Pacino. Okay. Now, would you like to give a synopsis?
Sure, thank you. So a number of months back, we came before you and discussed a number of changes to the blight ordinance due to some changes in state law. The council moved forward with recommending those for a public hearing, and right before we were about to advertise for the public hearing, the state made more changes to the blight law, specifically around the penalty provision. So we didn't move forward with having the public hearing because we knew we had to make some minor amendments to the law. Those new amendments are attached in your packet. A lot of it really has to do with the calculation of the fees and how we apply any violation fees for, it gets into some commercial properties, but also some larger multifamily properties. With all of that said, in my time here, which I think the blight ordinance was adopted shortly before I started, I can't think of any instances where we actually applied the blight fees and penalties. So again, as we discussed, the last couple of times, in every instance, we're always trying to work with the property owners to make sure that they can handle the cleanup themselves. There's a number of examples I could discuss about where, one recently, we had sent out some notices. We found out the owner of the property was actually in the hospital, and we just kind of put everything on pause so that we could work with those property owners once they came out. And again, that worked. It's successfully been cleaned up. So it's something we're very empathetic to, where people are and trying to work with them on the cleanup. But again, we wanted to be consistent with state law and how we were doing this. So happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Merritt?
Yes, where does this new proposal stand in accordance with an established set of rules for Fort Hill Homes, Quantic Bridge? I believe they have their own set of rules in place.
So Paquonic Bridge has some rules in place. These are more strict rules. Those were put in place well before the town had a blight ordinance. And then this blight ordinance applies.
The blight ordinance was put in after
Correct.
Fort Hill Homes established theirs.
Mm-hmm.
But when they did, they said, we will call it a blight ordinance, as theirs is called a property maintenance code. And they never said anything about including Fort Hill Homes. They left them kind of standing on their own. And you may have other village groups around us, Noank, Groton, Long Point, and where do they stand with this issue here coming to the table? Are they part of it, or?
Let me look again who this applies to. But this does apply to Fort Hill Homes?
It would just be the city and Groton Long Point that this wouldn't apply to. It does apply to Noank.
Thank you, John.
Okay.
You all set? Okay. All right, I'm not seeing any other hands. So I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
The date? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passes 9-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is 2024-680, the Climate Resiliency Plan and Steering Committee. That has been postponed, I believe, till August 13th.
23rd.
23rd.
I think, wherever the fourth Tuesday is.
The fourth Tuesday in August. So that has been postponed.
27th.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
All right, up next is 2024-597-1, Outside Agency Organization and Annual Budget. All right, let me find the right page. That is on page 99. There's no motion in advance. This is,
Point of information.
yes.
We discussed this last time, and I believe Counselor McBride made a motion for,
I think he made a recommendation. Did you make a motion? Was it seconded?
I don't believe there was a motion. on
Yeah,
the
just a
table.
recommendation of which,
Right. And then there's a motion to postpone until tonight.
okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Okay, yes. So at that meeting, it was requested that we have our financial director here, and would she like to come up to the table to answer questions? Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Good, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Dee Morrison, Director of Finance.
Thank you. So do we have anybody that has questions, or would you like me to go over the synopsis as to why this has come before us?
I would go with the synopsis, please.
Okay. So I had brought this forward as to look at these accounts that are in our budget. There are some items that I believe maybe should be moved around into different categories, or different accounts, let me say, cost centers. There are some specific ones that maybe could be moved over into regional, and there are some that are required, such as, which, as some counselors know that have been here for a while, the ambulance service is a required service that the town must supply to our area. And it is in Connecticut general statutes. So I brought this to the council to see if we could have a discussion on it and to see if there is consensus to maybe move some things and rearrange these cost centers. Counselor Parker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't believe it should be moved around because there's a tracking purpose behind everything. It keeps track of everything that's spent out of that account. And there are some that are, there are others. Marine sewage disposal is a state statute that we have to do, so that's another thing. These have been in these cost centers for more than probably 30 years. I'm just guessing about the timeline. But my question for our finance director, would that cause a problem us moving things around and tracking purposes?
For comparison and historic data purposes, it would make it more difficult to report on the information with the numbering scheme being different. If you were to move certain pieces around, create new cost centers, put them in different areas, prior year history is not going to line up, obviously. If we tried to run a report, so we'd have to run multiple reports and try to combine them to get all of the information in one area for you to view for prior years.
So I'd rather not cause more work for the department because it does get to be a busy season when they're trying to close out books and everything, and I want to be consistent of what we've been doing in several years. I'm done with my time now, and I'll take another turn after.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Counselor Pacino.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, we just went over the negative. What would be the positive in your opinion to doing this and how would it work out for the better?
So was the intent to spike out, say, the service agencies so they were more defined? Is that one of the intentions of creating additional?
Well, it was, we have regional agencies as a cost center, and like legislate maybe should go into the regional agency.
Okay, so you were thinking of moving them around. I guess it's all on the council's preference of what they would like to see. So if you're asking for a pro, if that's something that the council decides that they would feel is more beneficial to view the data in a different way,
then, we could move things around. It would make it more challenging to compile the information
Okay,
for historic purposes.
thank you.
Councilor McBride.
Yeah, I think when I proposed my recommendations, in my understanding, I think it's more not necessarily reporting, but it was more an understanding when, at least I'm going through the budget process. I look at these as like there's 4 or 5 different categories. There's really dues and subscriptions are COG, sector, seat, ledge light, and marine disposal. Those I look at as more dues and subscriptions. And then and I also think maybe the recommendation or the review of this was to compare similar services. So when we're discussing one ambulance, maybe we should be discussing the other ambulance. So my initial recommendations were like to put those together into one cost center. Same thing with the library. I think it makes sense to review the libraries together at the same time. But I understand, and I even talked to John Bird about this, and what you're saying makes total sense because your reporting is haphazard for prior years. So it doesn't make sense to change it now. But maybe as an alternative, when we go through the budget process, if we can review these in more similar situations. So review the dues and subscriptions together, review the ambulances together, review the libraries together, and the service agencies are really one big, hodgepodge of its own account anyway. So I'm okay with leaving it as is. I think it makes sense from a reporting standpoint, but I do think we could review them in a different format when the budget comes. So that would be my only recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Bordelon?
I also too can agree with Councilor McBride and Councilor Parker as far as maybe not changing it. To me, they're all very important, and I don't think one takes a priority over another. To my understanding, Ledge Light Health District, we have to fund. Is that correct, to the town manager?
Yes.
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay, so that has to be, so it's not an option either. But I did have concerns with fundings and how, they were being rolled out, versus one versus another, like an ambulance, for example. So I always found the layout, in my opinion, to be very chaotic over the last 7 to 8 years that I've been reading this budget. But to me, I think the name regional services kind of, in my opinion, gets lost. Unfortunately, we are a big municipality, but we're small in nature as far as our outreach and services that we provide. We're thankful for the services we do have. They're great, but they're not in comparison to other communities that have shelters and, rape crisis and other things. So to me, if a person is in need right now, we do not have a shelter to house them in. So I feel as a taxpayer to the town of Groton, providing money to those outside regional services is vital to our community, and we should look at those as a priority as well. So moving this, I just hope that it doesn't be like, okay, these regional services, what do we got left for them? They are very instrumental, and I think to properly vet these and do our due diligence, we should be inviting the people around the table that's going to be affected, right? We're making decisions on things that if we were to change the cost centers and all that, and reallocate them around, which I'm not for, but if we got to that point and that was the will of this council to do such, then we should invite those agencies to be here to discuss that. But I don't agree with moving them. I think the way that they are is fine. I can agree with maybe labeling them. I mean, that's simple in a budget book. There's nothing really holding us to how the layout is, so maybe changing the layout. But other than that, I don't think for data purposes and time, I do not think moving them. And again, to me, the regional New London Homeless and Hospitality, to me, that's vital. So, and many other Safe Futures, and the list goes on here, ARC of London County, ARC of Eastern Connecticut. These are, when we look at a community and what we fund, we look at all of the things that we provide, not just to a certain section or level. So I do not think we should move them. I do think that we can reallocate the wording in the actual budget book. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Pacino?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to make something clear for me. We're not looking to defund any of these. We're just looking to maybe move them around to different cost centers. Is that correct?
That was the intention.
Okay, there's no defunding whatsoever?
That is correct.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear. Got confused.
Thank you. So let me ask you, so when I work in accounting, if we change a general ledger, like account number, to a different number, the history still follows it. Does that not work in your system?
It would change, if we were to change, if we had something called Health and Service Agencies, and we've got it labeled as the 1084, if we were to change this to like 1094, all of the historic data would change for all of Health and Service Agencies to 1094. So if we were to run a report from prior years, it's now going to have the new number. It doesn't maintain the prior number. Actually, no. I have to double check on that. I don't know if that was our old system or our new system now that I say that.
So what
Let me double check.
I'm just saying in my
Let me double
accounting
check.
system, and maybe Counselor McBride might want to chime in, if you change the general accounting account number, it changes it throughout the system, and the history is still there. If you run that account number, it'll still pull it.
I
Or
have
are
to
you
double check
saying
on
because
that.
you put it in the system previously with an old account number, that will stay there, and it won't update them automatically?
I don't know. I'll have to verify between our old system and our new system.
One thing I'd point out is we have all our old budgets with the old numbers. I'd want to keep them separated.
If it were to
Yeah,
change.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we would keep the old number for all past things and the new number for new things. So we'd have to run 2 reports on things.
And when we do these in a budget, historically, how many years do we look at? 3 years?
For when we're preparing the budget.
When we pull the numbers out of the budget and historically look at them, it's 3
We
years.
would have actuals from 2 years ago, estimates from the year we're in, and then the budgeted for what we're.
So it basically
working
would take 2 years to overcome the historic data okay. I am not pushing this in any way. I just thought honestly that there were certain things that, because we put them in this group, some of them, I think, like Ledge Light, belong more in the regional agencies. I think that is, as it has been noted, it is something that is required, and it also is a regional agency. The marine sewage disposal, that's also a regional agency. They go around to numerous communities and take care of that. That would also be something that would be a regional sewage disposal for marine. And then I was also thinking about the 2 ambulance services and putting them in either regional, or I was curious if we could even put them into subdivision. I thought about it, I'm not really sure. I was looking to get some interest, but I don't want to go deep into this if I don't have any support to further the conversation, if there's not enough support, so I don't want to add too much to the conversation. And this does not devalue any of these accounts by any means. I just think it is a rearrangement of some of the budget items so that they might be looked in a little differently, a different light when we're looking at these. So if you could get an answer to that, that would be great, though, about your accounting system.
I will.
Thank you. Counselor Jones?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the mayor, either to the finance director or Mr. Burke, just sort of taking off on Councilor McBride's question, is it hard to sort of, I understand kind of what we're doing here, is it sort of hard to recategorize them just for the budget book, to kind of put them into groups so that we think of them in sort of categories, but their account numbers stay the same? Is that a reasonable thing to do?
I'm having trouble envisioning exactly what's meant by that. I mean, you have the 2 ambulances next to each other. I don't think you want them in one exact thing. I think you want them separated to some form, so I don't know why you would pull them out of there, other than, like you said, it's regional or something else. But in terms of comparing one to the other, no. You got the 2 libraries next to each other. You've got, now the ambulances are separated, but you can always go out of order discussing them too when you take this up.
We have voted on each of these as separate items anyways. I mean,
Yeah.
each one is a separate line item that gets voted on. Okay. I guess the question is, do we ever think about this in terms of our regional commitments and our local commitments? Do you ever sort of think of when you're budgeting, do you ever do it that way? I mean, which is sort of what.
Well, I mean, only in terms of, we know certain ones we have to fund exactly what they say, and the only one outside of the 1084 one, or the 1083 ones is the Ledgely. The others are not absolutely required at the number.
Okay.
You do have some leeway there.
And the
But I
VA,
will, sorry.
and then the VNA health promotion is just for general sort of health information, like COVID information, or is that what that one's for? I can't remember.
That's, they do some, like go to the senior center, do some, tests, run tests there, that type of thing.
Blood pressure clinics and
Yeah,
things like
yeah.
that, I think.
Okay, all right, okay. Okay, all right, thank you.
Now, just to say, we did though move the other VNA school this year, so it's not the end of the world. It will work out in a couple of years. I think the more changes, the more confusing. So I don't know if you want to make a lot of changes at once, but.
Maybe one final question. Do you ever go backwards and edit? We're talking about historical data, to go back and basically pull it out 2 years ago so that you can see that historical data could be something that you might do. So the question is, we would take 2 years for it to kind of clean itself in the system and get its own line, but could you go baquards 2 years? And
Yeah, it would just show up in a couple different spots. You'd have the old number, that is no longer funded showing up through where it quit being funded, and then you'd have a new number showing up being funded. Now, if it's in, it gets a little more confusing. We've seen that pretty often within a fund, but if you start moving it to other funds, that gets a little more confusing.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Counselor Parker?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We through you to Mr. Burt and Ms. Morrison, we do post the annual budget books each year. And it's not just the 2 years, it's how many years do we post online for that?
Oh, for the public to see. There's quite a few.
About 10 years or so I have out on the website.
So if we change this, we're going to have to make a disclaimer saying that this has moved to such and such place if people start looking for historical data, if we changed it.
If they were looking for comparisons.
Yeah.
I would say at the beginning of each, main section, you would write something saying what the change is until it.
Unless you
for a couple
post
years
it.
at
On the
least, yeah.
highlights page, it could be explained.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, highlights, yeah, too. Couple spots maybe.
And we know the public likes easier access, or at least I would, to have it right there and be able to see what the historical data is. Because especially going back and looking through our budget books for when I am at work, having it in different counts is a pain to look for stuff. And being consistent is the best practice, at least in my world it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Borderline?
Thank you. Just to clear, it was stated that, someone felt that someone said defund any account. To state the record clear from the person who said it, it never said the word defund. What I was concerned with is there's a lot of talk at the other meeting before this agenda item and tonight that there were things we have to fund versus things that maybe we don't have to fund. And I was afraid of the areas like homeless hospitality and other things that aren't required may not saying it will, but I just wanted to make sure the emphasis, because it's through what lens is the priority. If you talk to a whole different room or other people, their priorities outside of the VNA, not the VN, the Ledge Light and all those requirements, some people would say the other items are just as equally important in their book as a priority, even if they had to give them a smaller amount. So I just didn't want to lose sight of the whole thing, and I just didn't want it to be grouped in a way where here's our priorities and then this is what's left is my concern. I didn't want the visual to be that. Not saying we're gonna defund, not saying anyone up here said they would defund, just didn't want that to be a visual. Because in my opinion, I feel those services that aren't considered a must fund, to some people they are must fund, and we don't have the services in our own town. That's why we have to fund in other areas, or should fund in other areas. So either way, I'm not for changing any of it right now. I think it's clean the way it is. It's a simple thing where when we're discussing it, you might say, okay, the order of calendaring it for the budget could be grouped in a way that they're consecutively together in like order of items. That would be my recommendation. Because sometimes we've done ambulance, and then we did 3 other items, and then the ambulance for the other side, maybe just grouping them that way when we're doing our calendar of invites and nights that we're going to discuss it. But other than that, I don't see it really important at this time to change it. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other hands. Oh, I'm sorry, Counselor Gajewski, I'm so sorry. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was originally for possibly moving around into different object codes and putting the cost centers, and I had it all drawn out. But I think the manager had mentioned earlier that we could just go in a different order, and I think that's just an easy solution, and then we get the historical data and we can discuss it when we have the budget. Because during the budget season, it was very confusing to me that emergency services like Groton Ambulance and Mystic River Ambulance were in the same object code as the Mystic and Noank Library and the Bill Memorial Library, and it just didn't make sense to me. And I was like heavily confused when I was reading my budget book, but I think the manager's suggestion of kind of going out of order and do the budget is a good solution, and we get to keep the historical data too, and there's a little change. So that is it for me, and thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, I will take that note from people that have mentioned that this evening, and Mr. Burt, when we schedule the lineup of the budget, maybe we can have a discussion on how to put these in a way that makes sense.
Sure.
So, all right. So,
I was going to say, for example, with 1084, you do the health piece kind of together, in a chunk, and then do the service, wherever you guys want, we can put it in that order. And group them
Okay.
that way.
sounds good.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to adjourn by Bordelon, seconded by Gajewski.
Comment?
All those in favor? Aye. Aye. We're voting to adjourn.
Well, I had a question.
We can't, we're in the middle of a motion to
Okay,
adjourn.
see you then.
All those in, I'm sorry, let's do this again. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
All right. That passes 8 to 0 to 1. All right, it is 7:19 PM, and we are adjourned.
Recording stopped.